welcome back to Impact Skills channel. We've just recorded a webinar which I really think you will get some great value from. What we've done is split it into a 4-part series. So the one you're about to watch is part 1. And what we cover on there is how to be more captivating and influential on these screens that we've all come to love and enjoy. You know, in this two-dimensional world that I believe we're going to be using far more frequently now for the foreseeable future, how to influence with integrity, how to genuinely connect with your audience, and some of the more practical elements of how to sound good, how to look good, and how to project your voice in a way that's understood, and also to ensure that when you're in this situation, that you have some kind of backup plan if things go wrong. It's about an hour long, and as I say, it's part 1 of a 4-part series. So there are lots of takeaways from this. And then in the keynotes, you'll also see a link in case you want to, I would love to invite you to join our 2nd and 3rd and even 4th part of the same series. If you have any questions at all or any comments, drop them in below. And by all means, let me know if you've had any ideas yourselves so we can share amongst the community. First of all, thank you very, very much for being here today. We really appreciate you making the time and the effort to be here. We've had far more registrations than we initially anticipated. I'll be completely transparent with you. From as far afield as the Philippines all the way to Panama. That basically says to me that we have an opportunity here that this training is not only current, but is in high demand right now. So for some of you, it's going to be a very early breakfast, and for some of you, a very late midnight snack. So whatever you're doing, wherever you are, welcome to the call. We really appreciate you giving us this 1 hour of your time. But I can promise you by the end of it, you will definitely have some tips, tools, and techniques that you can implement straight away after the call. Maciej.
Hello everyone, my name is Maciej Trybulec. I am really delighted to be here with you and with my friend Late to co-host this webinar. In the beginning, I want to tell you a story. It was about 9 years ago, and at the time I was a general manager of Sanofi Pasteur, French pharmaceutical company in Poland. And Late came for 2 days training, exclusively for presentation skills training. We spent 2 days together, and at that time I didn't believe I believe I was a good presenter. And when he came, he said in the beginning, Maciej, this training will change your business life. You know, I looked at him, didn't say much, but inside I was full of skepticism because I didn't believe I was a bad, and I was wrong 2 times. First of all, I don't think I was a good presenter. But secondly, this training has changed my business life. I started to work very hard, day by day, month by month, and a few years later, I started to provide the training on presentation skills training, starting from our colleagues from Sanofi Pasteur, later extended to 17 countries. A year ago, I quit corporations, established my own company, and I am delivering training on presentation skills, on leadership and some other topics. I'm telling you this story in the era of pandemia, just to make you aware that we might impact you. But this is gonna be, don't worry, gonna be positive impaction. I should maybe say, we hope to inspire you, no matter on which level of presentation skills you are, that you might be infected with new hints and tips, maybe ideas, especially we are thinking about this presentation online, which is a little bit different than on live. Late?
Well, thank you very much, Maciej. I appreciate that compliment, first of all. And I cannot believe it's almost a decade ago that we first worked together. And it was a wonderful 2 days. And here you are giving back in terms of your skills and presentation ability to others in this seminar today. So what are we going to cover today? And indeed, over the 4 weeks, remember that this is one of 4 parts. So we're going to ensure that you can engage and captivate your audience online in this new 2-dimensional world that we're all working in. We're going to look and we're going to try and ensure that you look and sound professional, that you avoid any predictable video, audio kind of issues, and to optimize your physiology. What are you doing with your body to ensure your message lands, and to speak with credibility and conviction? Maciej.
Yes, before we fasten our seatbelts and we will take off, please take a look on the very simple rules of our contract, our interaction. Because we are quite big number of participants, so please mute your microphone to avoid some background noises. On the other hand, thank you to those who already opened the camera. It's nice when you can, please, we'll have a more human interactions online. Despite of muted microphone, I can assure you there will be a lot of interactions, and then one of the way of interacting is the chat box. So please place your questions, comments. From time to time, we will look into it and we'll refer to them. We suggest to use speaker's view. This is showing a person who is currently talking. From time to time, you may look at the gallery, but it's a little bit maybe more distractive than the speaker one. And the another way we will interact is probably known to many of you, the Mentimeter. There is 2 ways to use the Mentimeter. The one is, please grab your phone and you can go to the address you have, menti.com, and then you put the code 562485. This will transfer you to the place where you will be asked to either say where from you are calling today, or some other comments, and then we will check in a moment how does it work. The second way, maybe even easier, is to use the Menti, the link which I will place in a moment in the chat box, and then just press the link. You'll be transferred again to the same place when you are asked to give your feedback, and then we will show on the big screen your answers. If the link will not transfer you automatically, please just copy it and paste to your browser you are using. To stop the theory and start the practice, the first questions we have to you, please let us know where are you from now, which place or city and country you are connected right now. I am putting the link into the chat box. Yeah, I see the many countries I am sharing with you. As Leigh said, we are across the globe. Can you see it?
Yes. Oh, very interesting. Hi, Belgrade.
France, many people from France. I believe from Sanofi or Sanofi Pasteur probably also.
London,
Poland,
Paris,
Russia, London. This is yours, Leigh?
No, I didn't put London. Perhaps you did, Ian. Mumbai in India, Bulgaria, Malta. Wonderful. Bucharest, Sao Paulo, Latin America, and Dubai.
When the size of the letter is bigger, it means that more than one person just let us know the country. So it seems to be that from France probably will have the biggest representation. Good. Great.
So this is live, as it were, so you can see as people put that in, the majority of people from France, Dubai, and Casablanca, it seems, and Poland and Malta. So thank you for that.
Well, so this was just to warm up, and the next questions we would like to ask you. I'm sure you saw recently many webinars or interviews when you notice something which is maybe a little bit irritating you. So please, on the next questions we have for you is what you don't like when seeing presentation online. I'm not talking about the content, I'm talking about the technical part, like the frame, the light, the voice, volume. So what is your biggest irritation, issues with online presentation? The same link, please go to the same link and let us know what you don't like.
So what's irked you most? What is your biggest irritation on webinars?
I hope we don't say blah, blah, blah late. Yeah,
No,
background noises. Exactly.
Yeah.
Presenter not looking at me and not connected. That's the topic we are going to devote it sometimes in a moment.
Weak connection, lack of interaction, frame freezing, unclear voice. Yeah, these are very normal irritations. Thank you for that. And there's more coming.
Much more. I cannot see
technical problems, boredom, background. That's a very key one. The background, feeling alone, correct? Reading slides, an echo, people WhatsApping, and an unclear voice or monotone. Yeah, these are great. These are all topics we're actually going to cover today, and a few more. So that's wonderful.
Thank you very much. This is good suggestions for us, what we should do to have the vivid webinar. In fact, we are telling you the Mentimeter. I'm sure many of you know it, but this is also a way of interact with the audience, especially when you have more than 12 or 15 people. You have many different options to show it. So we were very much encouraging you to think about it when you run your own webinar.
So, what I'm going to talk about is a couple of things that came up on that is how you look. And it's really important for you to know that actually how you look on camera is one of the biggest irritations, as you saw from that poll, from that survey. So how do you look when you're on one of these calls? So let me share my screen with you right now. So can you all see that?
Yeah.
All right. So this is something that you're probably going to get used to very quickly. People on a Zoom call or some description on some platform. So we need to have a look at how your modalities are being used, what you see, what you hear, and what you feel. There is another one which is olfactory in terms of what you smell. In this world, of course, unless, I don't know, Bill Gates has something to do with it, I can't yet smell your perfume or your aftershave, so none of that matters for the time being. But certainly what you see and what you hear is critical. And in terms of what you see, it's your eye movement, your hands, your posture, what you hear, the volume that came up, so is the inflection, the pauses, and of course, non-words, the ers and that we hear online quite frequently. And a lot of that was mentioned in that poll. So the impression you create is done by how you look. It's created by how you sound and what you say. So let's focus on how you look, since most of us take in information through our visual abilities and of course via listening. But for now, let's have a look at how you look. So for example, I'll go through these postures. These are things you've probably seen. I certainly have in my lots of Zoom meetings in the last couple of months, 3 months. Rocking in the chair, looking tired, bored perhaps, distracted on a tablet or a phone, a little bit better, attentive, back straight, and listening. So let's have a look at those. I'll include this last one and I'll come back to it. So let me stop sharing for a second. So for example, looking a little bit like this, if I'm rocking back and forth in my chair, and I've seen people doing this on a fairly frequent basis, because it is comfortable, it does become a little bit distracting after a while. Or if I'm slouching over here somewhere in the distance, first of all, my voice isn't carrying as much, and I'm looking a little bit bored. And it gives an impression. If it's the right impression, I don't know, but it does give an impression. Or I could just be sitting like this, slouching forward on my tablet or on my phone. Now, what we're not saying is that you have to be perfect all the time. That is unrealistic, and frankly, in this world, it's a lot to ask. However, if you're on an important call, if you have stakeholders on a specific call, and you've got +1, +2 on that in that Zoom room, or perhaps the stakeholders have a critical decision to make with this, or you're selling to a client, or perhaps you're at a town hall meeting or a cycle meeting. These then become much more important in terms of how you sit and how you look. So do you have to do this all the time? No, especially on your regular team meetings with your own colleagues internally, a little bit more casual. But the more formal meetings, for sure. Back straight, have that extended chest so you can push your voice out and so you can sound credible as well as look credible. It also means that you have a little bit of distance from your laptop rather than being crowded up front here or too far back here that they can't see you. Have a medium kind of distance so you can gesture freely. So be aware of your posture is the little tip there. One more share, if I may, which was this one. And I've seen this a couple of times, and I'm sure many of you may have seen something similar. All I'm saying with this particular slide is just be yourself. And I hate to use the cliche, be authentic, but actually, if people have seen you before in an office and then you're something different online, they will notice that when you come back to the office. We do seem to be having a phased release of lockdown now. So be yourself. There's nothing wrong with all your personality characteristics and idiosyncrasies. Just be yourself online as you are in the real world. Thank you. Maciej.
It reminds me the film about the background when we saw the reporter from BBC when no, we'll go back later to it. I see into the chat that there is a many hellos from different part of the world. We are delighted to have you all. There is some additional comments. What is actually distracting from watching webinar? Thank you very much for all those comments. By the way, what is one of the elements of distraction is the wrong light. I wonder if you saw sometimes during the interview, media or running webinar, people sitting like I was sitting yesterday. I want to show you my picture in a moment. So when you're sitting back to the light, people cannot see your face. This is the biggest problem, that there is difficult to have an interaction with the audience. What's the issues? Very simple rule, that you always face the light. I have here on the right hand side a window, natural window. Can be in front of you, can be on the side, but what is very important, that you try to position yourself that your face is seen clearly. If you sometimes run a webinar in the evening or the weather is miserable like today, I encourage you to buy really simple equipment, not very expensive. This is the light. This is the lamp when you use for photography, and this can be helping you to be much more independent when you run in the evening, or maybe the weather is maybe not the best to run the webinar. So please remember, simple things, face the light. Leif?
Yeah, and I can share that with you very quickly if you like. This is what we're talking about. It's essentially, and I'm sure you've seen this, many of you probably witnessed or seen this or even done it yourself. I've certainly done it in the early days, years ago, when I think, well, I need to see what I'm doing. If the light is behind you, you end up being this dark shadow, this silhouette, which they can't see you. And the problem with that is, of course, we all communicate via our facial expressions, our eyes, and what we're looking at and how we seem to be. If we can't see your face, it has that sense of a little bit of distrust and maybe a little bit uncomfortable. So let's have a look at your face so we can basically read the situation better. I'm going to show you a little bit about the background. This one, I am sure you've all seen. In fact, there may be a few of you that haven't, since we're all over the world today. And I'd like to share this with you because it's the BBC reporter. It's now gone extremely viral, and there are even interviews about the interview. Some of you will already know what I'm talking about, others may not. But the reason I bring this up, it's really critical. Now, as I said, on an everyday communication, it's not the end of the world. You can see behind me, I've got a set of books. This is my normal garage office. I converted years ago. It works perfectly well for me. I'm not trying to hide behind a fake screen or a fake image. Why? My personal take on this is that it is fake. And people know it's fake. Now, in lockdown, We all work from home. So we know there's going to be perhaps kids in the background, or an elderly parent, or pets, or noise that we can't control. But again, in the usual meetings, not a problem. But if you get to a high stakes meeting and or a client pitch or a negotiation with key partners, that's when it becomes a little bit more important. And that's when you do need to try and control your background and your environment a little bit better. And we'll talk about the tech stuff a bit more later. So let me share this with you now. It is funny. We may play it a couple of times if there are any questions, but it is hilarious.
Scandals happen all the time. The question is, how do democracies respond to those scandals?
And what will it mean for the wider region? I think one of your children has just walked in. I mean, shifting sands in the region. Do you think relations with the North may change?
I would be surprised if they do. Pardon me. My apologies.
What's this going to mean for the region?
My apologies. South Korea's policy choices on North Korea have been severely limited in the last 6 months.
Right, so I'll stop that share there. Now, I saw lots of smiling faces there, and rightly so. Now, fortunately for this chap, he is a genuine BBC presenter. He obviously tried to control the room, and you can see if you look at it carefully in your own time, you know, when you've got more time, look at it yourself again, several times, because what I would pull the focus to is his facial expression. So I like the minute facial expressions that you can see, because it does give a lot away. Now his eyes are dimmed, his mouth is cowering, and it's like, oh my God, I thought the kids weren't going to come in. So be aware of your background. That viral video he's now had more interviews about the interview. So it's a classic one, and in his case, it was a positive outcome, and everybody had a good laugh about it. However, it's a good example of what could go wrong, even if you try to control the environment. Maciej.
Right, that was funny. I saw it many times. Every time makes me laugh, really. Poor reporter. Anyway, let's go to the topic, which is called frame. What I have in mind is that usually we should be located in the middle of the frame, like I am in more or less now. From time to time, you might see many different mistakes. I'll tell you a story. 2 weeks ago, when I was participating on a webinar, which the title was "How to Run Webinar," and the content was fine. It was quite interesting. There was small on the but. One of the co-hosts, most of the time, was talking to us like that. So the good things was I saw his mouth. I could understand English better, but I couldn't see his eyes. I couldn't see his head. And believe me, it was a little bit weird. Especially the topic of the webinar was how to professionally run webinars. So our suggestion is that this is the position which I could call medium shot, and this is like the basic one. From time to time, you might see people having longer shot. So what they do, they can have standing presentation, and this is give you some additional opportunity. You might use your gesture much more vigorously. A bigger part of your body is seen, or you can move a little bit if you wish. If you are doing such a webinar, you should have professional screen here and to present all the time on standing position. However, there is one but. I wouldn't recommend you to do it when you're running webinar online. Why? Because look, most of you are more or less in this medium position on the other side of the screen. So if you are 1-2 meters behind, you are making distance. You're like seem to be distant from them, and this is not good way to build the interaction, to see the facial expression. So this is not the way we would recommend for the webinars. Doesn't mean that you have to be really bound or chained to the chair. No. You might, if you want to use your gesture maybe more dynamically, you can pull your chair a little bit back and use your hands and to show that something is composing of 3 parts. Or if you want to say something special, you might have a so-called close shot up, and you might say, the most important, however, is, and say something what you want to say. Maybe an example. Presentation usually is composed of 3 parts. What you say in the beginning, like a starter, the main dish, and the dessert. If you ask me which part is the most important, I want to tell you that the most important is the first 30 seconds. If you don't take your audience on board, they will have a different travel, usually with their smartphones or other media. So you are not really bound here. You might move a little bit, and this is also changing, like breaking the monotony of your presentation. Leith.
So I wanted to have a look at, thank you very much for that, Maciek, absolutely true. So whether you're up front looking at somebody's chin, not a great look, or too far back that they can hardly see you or hear you, also not a great look. So all we're saying with that is position yourself in the frame where you think you look reasonable, you've got some space to gesture freely without knocking stuff over and without getting too close to the camera, because whatever's closest to the camera gets exaggerated. So that's just on that piece. Now we're going to look at another part here, which is very, very critical, and that's your eye contact on the same level as your audience. So let's have a look at that right now. I'll share my screen with you. So can you all see that? Okay. So the benefits of eye control, you look at the lens, as Matthew is going to come on to in a moment, truly connect with your client because it gives the perceived perception of eye contact. And why is that important? Well, most of us, most of the time, will be doing something like this. And I can see on the gallery view that people are in this position right now. And that's great because you're in a sort of a passive mode just watching a webinar. Now, the interpretation of that, because we normally do that, it's what we would do when we come on to, or jump onto a Zoom call of some description. Now, that arrow is angled at about 45 degrees. So you are looking down at people. And as I say, and I'm sure you've seen this, you are looking up people's nostrils and perhaps their double or triple chin. So whichever way you look at it, it's not a good look. The other reason I put this up is because in our formative years, when we're 0 to 7, 8 years old, on the left with the red cross very deliberately over it is an adult talking down to a child. Now that's talking down physically and talking down metaphorically. On the right-hand side with the green tick, you'll see that the adult and child are pretty much at eye level. And we all know, those of you who've got children or young nieces and nephews will know that actually when you want to connect with somebody, get to their eye level and speak to them directly, rather than look down on them. Now we take that with us as we grow up into adulthood. We don't like being talked down to. So what we'd suggest is something like this. So raise your books, raise your laptop rather on some books. You know, it doesn't have to be, something off Amazon that costs money. Just get a stack of books, an old box, whatever it is, lift it up 12, 15 inches in old money, maybe 50 centimeters in modern money, as it were. And you'll see the purple arrow there. That's been raised now. So more or less, you've got the orange arrow showing that we're looking at you at the same level, eye to eye, as it were. And that is really important because it just feels like you're talking to me rather than looking down at me. So that's one little tip that I really think all of us could do, and there's really no reason not to do that. And why? Because the normal view of people, and I get this is normal view before the lockdown, but in a meeting situation or standing up, those people in the pictures are all eye to eye. So when we get onto a Zoom call or whatever platform you're using and you're not eye to eye, it feels a bit weird, especially when you're in your more professional capacity rather than just a casual call. So this is me using my laptop camera, and the laptop was in the position you saw earlier on the desk. So you can see a lot of the ceiling, and you're looking at my chin and my nose, not a great look. This is me using a webcam, and they're very, very freely available, inexpensive. It now looks like you've got a wider shot. It's HD quality, so it's a high definition, and more importantly, it's eye to eye. So you can now see me more clearly. It feels like I'm connecting with you. And of course, it just feels more open and connected rather than looking down and having that angle up your nose, as it were. So, Matti.
Well, thank you. So maybe it's time now just to have a small exercise.
Yeah.
Please switch into the gallery view now, if you are on the speaker's view, and try to work a little bit on your frame. So if you can position yourself just in the center of the frame, in this medium shot, what we say, maybe if you can, obviously, turn toward the light. This is possible. Please don't move furniture. This is not that we want to do or change the room, but if you can turn your face toward the light, natural, or a lamp, and just to the position that your shoulders and the head and shoulders are seen. Oh, I see the big improvement. You see, late?
Yeah, very much so. Fantastic.
Daniela, very nice background. So I see the first and the second part. Oh yeah, I see. Yeah, I see. It says 4 pages, 80 people together. So we cannot really comment individually. But thank you very much for your efforts to have the frame and the posture, the position versus camera, just like you have it now. Great. Well, thank you. Now it's time to talk about our favorite topic, I think. The favorite topic is another way to have interaction, to build a relationship with the audience, is the eye contact. I remember when Late came to Poland, he taught me absolutely, for me, was a new method to deliver eye contact, like you pour the champagne to the glass and each message should be delivered to each pair of eyes. Obviously, online, this is impossible. You have only one target to place your eyes, and this is the lens of your camera. And I know it's really difficult to concentrate on the camera all the time, because we are attracted. Like, for example, I'm looking on Daniela, Miriam, Ellie, or Ricardo, just to see what is your reaction. Ella, I see, hello, Ella. So I see your reactions, and this is catching my eyes. I'm looking on my frame, is it okay? So, and this is quite often mistake made. So please be careful whenever you talk. Always talk to the camera. I know my camera is black, cold, glassy, is really not something I should concentrate my eye on. So I will show you a trick maybe to help you a little bit. So please take a Post-it, bend it over, could be smaller. I have this size only on my desk. Take a scissors, make a semi-hole, unfold it, and take a pen maybe and draw as nice as you can pair of eyes and a big smiling face, more or less like that. And please stick into your external or internal camera. If you have internal, probably cannot stick such a big pose, so you could stick small, much smaller smiling face. This is to remind you, Maciek, that you have to look all the time here into the camera. Why? Because this is the best way to not only build interaction, but also be much more effective, convincing. I see people from Sanofi. Many times I was defending a budget for the headquarters, and now probably it can happen online. So could you imagine you're saying the following sentence. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't believe we are able to sell 2 million more on the Polish market. Is not big enough to have such a level of sales. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't believe we are able to sell 2 additional million euro on the Polish market. The market is not big enough to do so. So I'm sure you see the power of convincement, the difference. So when you look in the camera, you have nothing to hide, you're much more effective, much more convincing. So the message from this part, please, if not all the time, definitely most of the time, whenever you're speaking, speak to the lens of your camera. Late.
Thank you, Maciej. Yeah, absolutely critical. And I know for all of you, this is a cold, hard lens. And it's very difficult because, as Maciej said, particularly in a gallery view, you're attracted to movement. Your eyes are naturally attracted to movement. So if you see stuff going on in these little postage stamps that we see in front of us, then of course you want to look down. That's completely natural. However, it is a discipline to look up, chin up, and look at the lens, because now you feel like I'm speaking directly to you rather than speaking directly to you now. So always look at the lens if you can. If you need to look away, say something and come back to the lens, as we would do in the normal reality when you're talking one-to-one or one-to-many in a group. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about something else which is desperately important, which are your gestures. So you can see I've pushed myself back a little bit. I'm still audible, using the microphone that Maciej might talk about later, but now I'm able to support what I'm saying with my gestures. And it's really important to be able to do that. So if I am talking about the frame that we're in, this supports my message. If I talk about the frame we're in now, not quite so supportive. If we are a global organization stretching from the east to the west, that's one version. We are a global organization stretching from the east to the west. What we say with gestures, particularly online, because you sap that energy from people when they're not physically in the room. So you have to give that extra 10% passion and energy and gesture appropriately. What I call emphatic gestures, not just waving the hands, for no reason, but, we have to push up the profits 20%. We have to drive down costs 5%. These gestures help reinforce your message and enable you to just articulate what you need to say more succinctly, frankly. Because if you don't use your gestures, you are not enabling that congruency to happen. If you're really passionate and energetic about what you're trying to portray and how you're saying it, your hands and arms will move naturally. But if you just keep them by your side and don't move, it's a little bit static and it just looks like you're not that interested or perhaps not as passionate about a particular topic that you could be. So look directly into the lens, even if you're gesturing away. This does take practice, by the way. So if you're going all the way to the east or the west, looking at the lens, if we need to increase profits and drive down costs, we are a global organization and we need to progress forward, not look behind. Maciej.
Thanks, Late. I'm looking into the chat. Thank you, Iman, for asking questions. How can we monitor the audience reactions to adopt the communication? That's a very key question. It's much easier when you have live presentations, but still, the way you can do it is just to go to the gallery view, and I can see now about 20-something people. I can see whether you are bored or not. Maybe you want to really quit. I know it's not easy, but at least you can have some hint. Is what you're delivering interesting, or maybe they are really the positions as said, Lei said a minute ago, rather bored. So this is the one way to. I fully agree. It's much more difficult, but still there is a chance. There is a questions for Pandamaba in a presentation with multiple speakers. How do you manage slide transitions where a central person controls the slides? Okay, so I understand there is a, fortunately we don't have the issue here. Maybe I can share what we have here. We have, by the way, just for security, the same set of slides on both sides.
Yeah.
But we are presenting our slides individually. If I speak, I present mine and lay the same. If there is a central, I understand, central person who is controlling the slides, if a person is not with you, I think the only one is the verbal way to say, please, next slide. I don't have any other idea. Late, maybe you do.
No, and I think it's a very good question. It really is a very good question. And, you know, we're very transparent about what we've been doing in terms of preparation for this particular webinar. We've practiced probably 12, 15 times on and off. And the best way we found, and we've done our individual ones, but working with a co-host does change the dynamics. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. And the best thing you can do is share exactly the same documents each. Why? Two reasons. One, because if one host breaks connection for whatever reason, you know, the cable gets severed or the Wi-Fi drops or whatever it might be, then the other host can maintain the webinar because you promised to be there, so you stay there. The other reason is if one of them only has the slides and they happen to be the one that's cut off, then the other one has no information. They can maybe carry on verbally, but you both need the same documentation. I would suggest something like Google Docs, because you can share that live in real time. And of course, we happen to be using PowerPoint. But I would limit the number of slides you use because the interaction we're doing with you now is far more human, let's say, than just showing slides. The same as Mentimeter. So stay live, stay interactive. And of course, as Maciej was just doing, picking up questions from the chat box helps you maintain and also sense what's going on in the room. And of course, this visual with the view that I've got of everybody does give me some sense of what's going on. If people are all sat like this, then of course we change it up and change gear or make it more interactive again. But the vast majority look very, very attentive and really on track with us. So that's wonderful. Maciej, does that answer your question? Sorry, the lady that asked. I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name.
What should be the maximum length of duration of webinar? That's the very good question. There are different modes. We decided to go for 1 hour. I was running webinar for 1.5, but definitely it must be a break in between. I wouldn't recommend to have a longer webinar than twice 1.5 hour. On the other hand, I saw trainers who are running 8 hours webinar, still people survive. No, but seriously speaking, in the time of online training, I think the module, which are 1 hour, 1.5, divided by maybe one break, that's probably all what we can afford. We have to remember that we are all sitting on a computer all day long, having not only training, but many other activities, business activities. So we have to be really respect the time and respect the overload of what we have on our heads. I think before roundup, we have a last topic to speak. I think is very, very important is the way we are delivering our presentation. So what I believe is key elements is the speaking with passion, with engagement, and with enthusiasm. I remember the sentence that someone told me that, please remember, my audience is my mirror. So if you really want that your audience is engaged what you are talking about, please show engagement. Show your enthusiasm toward your ideas, speak with passion, speak with involvement, engagement. Otherwise, why you should expect the audience to be enthusiastic if you have very interesting topic to deliver in this way? So I think audience like enthusiastic, smiling speakers. So if you can really share your smile with the others, I'm sure the mirror neurons will react. You know, the neural neurons are reflecting your reaction. So please think about enthusiasm, passion, positive energy, and to be grateful that you can really take their time and you can share with them. Together with Late, today, together with Slate, we are really grateful that 80 people, I think more than that now, 80 something, came to our webinar, and we can share our thoughts, our ideas with you today. So I think, Slate, it's time to slowly round up.
Yeah, we're going to be very respectful of your time. One thing that it's also, I think I saw a little bit of it in the chat box, was, speakers speaking too much. And one of the things that we were very conscious of is making this 45 minutes to an hour. And we've prepared content for well over an hour, but we do want to make sure, because we know that at 0:00, wherever you are in the world, most people, most of the time, have another meeting or appointment to get to. So another tip as a takeaway is, if you have a 1 hour webinar, seminar, meeting, whatever, and I would do this in the real world, in real training too, is finish on time or slightly before time. One thing that my mentor told me years ago is that you will always find people grateful that you finished before time or on time, but nobody will thank you for finishing late, because they've got other things to do, clearly. So yes, so we do the last mentee?
Maybe lately we can take 1 or 2 comments from the chat.
Yep.
What would you recommend in order to keep the audience attention during the webinar? I think it's good to have 2 panelists, because then two co-hosts, because you're changing not only the color of the shirt, but also some other the way of delivering. Very important would be some elements like Mentimeter, so you could share. I will ask you in a moment to share with your takeaways, chat box, films, slides. So what I think is important, to not have 1 hour, 2 heads talking one way.
No.
And to try to really have a mixture to maybe change the monotony. Maybe you will take, how do you politely manage to over-contributor? We spoke about it late. Mm-hmm. What would you do?
To over-contribute?
To manage to over-contribute. Understand someone who is taking a lot of time.
Yeah, so I mean, if you have a discussion with one person, and we do this in the real world when it comes to a presentation or communication, what you don't want is for somebody to dominate that situation. Because let's take this example. If I was in a real room with a seminar with 100 people and faces looking at me, if I get into a one-to-one discussion with one person, I've got to be very conscious that 99 other people are now starting to get bored. Now, there are different ways to interact with an audience, and online, yes, keep it short, keep it brief, and then move on. And the expression I would use is perhaps something like, in the interest of time, or we need to move on since we've got the content promised for others, something along those lines. Be polite and be respectful is the shortest answer for that. One of the things I also wanted to touch on, which was key in this real world that we're in now. I anticipate, and we've seen it already, in fact, yes, we're on lockdown for a couple of months, maybe 10 weeks and longer. In Morocco, I understand it's the longest we've ever had, they've had, compared to other countries. So if that's the case, then be a little bit more empathetic now than perhaps we were before the lockdown. Some people are struggling with the lockdown. As I said, they may have children, rowdy teenagers, they might have pets, an elderly parent, they may live in a block of apartments and they haven't been able to get out for a long time. So have a little bit of empathy and don't be tone deaf to what's going on in their lives. So if they're not being attentive or haven't responded in the way that you prefer them to, there might be other stuff going on in the background. So just for this time period through the virus, it might be worth just considering that there are other things going on in the background. So empathize and don't be tone deaf. Maciej.
Time for roundup. Maybe we use the same Mentimeter, and I put it again, the link to the chat. So please share with us what are your key takeaways today. So what is something you're taking with you, especially what we have in mind, that what are you gonna implement in your daily life, in your business life from what we were talking. Please take your time and I will share the answers. Yeah, I see already some of them.
Okay, just in the chat box.
15 seconds more.
Yeah, so 1 minute, everybody, put in all your answers so we can actually see. I love that one in the middle. And it's getting bigger. So whilst that's happening, people, you know, this is a really cool tool. This is called menti.com. And what you can do is in real time get an assessment or an evaluation or a sense of what's going on in your webinar. And you can see as this screen grows, you should be able to see this on your screen right now, that people are not only interactive. So as I said at the beginning, we're very transparent about what we're doing. So we'll tell you what we're doing while we're doing it. So Mentimeter here allows you to A, interact with your audience, B, it gives them a mirror of what other people are thinking. And in and of itself, it's a very useful interactive tool for them to be able to see what's going on. It's fantastic. And if you look at the middle there, maybe Maciej, we might mention this about the word cloud. Maciej, do you want to talk about the word cloud?
Well, maybe next time.
Okay. Essentially,
so summarizing today, be yourself seems to be the most interesting. Empathy. Some people had nothing. This is also noticed. So probably they were already very professional. What we were talking today. Speak with passion. Amazing tips. Face the camera. Smile. Post it.
yeah.
Speak good lighting. Thank you very much for sharing all your experience, what you are taking with you. Right, so maybe it's time for roundup.
Yeah, thank you very much for your participation in the interest of finishing on time. And sometimes you have to build in a buffer with a webinar or a presentation like this because you've no idea how many questions might come in and or, being honest, if there are any technical issues. So one of the things I wanted to just quickly run over is one, what have we covered today and what are we going to do next week? So today we had a look at a little bit about the technical stuff, the camera, the lighting, the sound, the background, you know, whether it's a fake background or a real background, what's going on in the background. We had a look at the BBC reporter and how perhaps, you know, these incidents can be turned into something positive, perhaps not when you're giving a very important presentation to the board. Distractions, any distractions at all. You know, if you've got your phone or a tablet or a mobile device, switch it off completely. And why do I say that? Simply because, yes, a message might come through and it's on off. Worst case, it might be ringing or on buzz, but even the light of a message coming through on the screen will distract you. Your body will leak some information about a distraction happening. Not only is it a distraction for them, for you, but it's also a distraction for you, and your body will leak that. The posture we talked about, don't rock in your chair, or don't be too far, don't be too close so you can see up your nose and up your chin. And gestures, how do we gesture appropriately, emphatically to make a point? And the engagement, you know, how do we engage people? Look directly at lens, come closer if you need to, or further, depending on what you're trying to say and how important it is. So the next thing is for next week. What are we going to cover? Very quickly, how to structure your Zoom call, how to have an agenda that you can actually utilize to your advantage. This is not just a list. How to ensure that the contribution from everybody on that call is there rather than just them sitting passively not doing an awful lot. The time and timing. Is this 9 o'clock on a Monday or is it for 2 hours on a Friday afternoon? Does it make a difference? We'll see. How to manage stress and anxiety on one of these calls, because a lot of people right now may be a little bit more stressed. And how and what is your backup plan if things go wrong, which does happen. Maciej.
Thank you very much for being with us today. We are really delighted and thank you for your active contribution. We hope we infected you with some maybe new hints, some inspirations you might use in your business life. So please remember this is only 1/4 of our journey, and we are very much looking forward to see you next time. So thank you very much.
So I have one little trick for you that you can all play on a call like this. It is much more interactive and it's a little bit of fun. And we all need a little bit of that right now. So I'd like you all to raise your hand. Come on, even you shy ones, raise your hand. So one of the most awkward things about coming off a Zoom call is exactly this. What do we do at the end? Well, here's a trick that I found and I think works quite well. I am going to count down from 5 to 0 to 1. And on 1, everybody comes off the call. You ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Disconnect.
Thank you.
So there you go. I hope you've learned some practical tips there. You know, raising the computer so it's at eye level, for example, using a microphone and some decent lighting to light you, the subject. Perhaps a backup plan in terms of a lost connection with the Wi-Fi using an Ethernet cable, and how to tell stories that are more engaging. And of course, how to captivate your audience by framing yourself correctly and not necessarily doing anything silly with your body language, as it were. So as I say, I really hope you enjoyed that. Please remember, in the notes below, you're welcome to join our second webinar in a week's time. Click the link, get registered, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.